Hey guys, Kapper here and welcome back. And this is probably going to be one of our strangest videos, but we're going to have some fun and see what happens here. So, as your YouTube channel grows, you get haters, you get know-it-alls, you get people that pip you for this or that, and which is all fine. Sometimes I'll engage with them, sometimes I'll just block them or delete them or whatever. So anyways, a while back, this guy, he's not a hater. He goes by Schick happens, and a while back he started sending me private emails, and saying like, he's kind of a know-it-all. He'd make comments. He just started making comments, but like I said, he's been sending me private emails. He'll say stuff like, that's pretty good, what you did with that food plot, but if it were me, I would do blah blah blah. And he does that like all the time. He kept doing it and doing it. He'd comment about my videos and he'd do the same thing over and over again. So one time I decided to call him on it. I'm like, well, if you're so good at it, I said, why don't you come over and prove it? Come visit us on the Kapper farm. And all of a sudden, nothing. I heard nothing back from him. A day went by, like 2 days went by, and I responded back, I sent back to him, I said, yeah, that's what I thought. You're full of shit. And so then the next day he's like, all right, he's like, I'll do it. I'll take you up on it. I'll show you. He would say all kinds of stuff like, how much he could teach me about food plotting, and he could shoot, a gnat's ass at 1,000 yards. He could shoot better than me. He could manage land better than me. He could do bush hogging better than me. He could ride a four-wheeler better. It's always this little like, yeah, you're pretty good, but you should see me do this. Let me get some references out here. Some of the stuff he said over the last month or so, give or take. Oh yeah, he's good at fishing. They're like preppers. He'll say stuff like, yeah, that little solar flashlight you got is all good, but we make our own pork. We make our own bacon. And he sent me pictures of that, of making bacon. We talk about scent control, like you do scent control, but what I do is just probably a little bit better. Fishing, he brags about how he catches all these big fish and that I need to learn from him on how to fish. And so through this process, he invited me deer hunting. He's in Ohio. And I'm like suspicious. I'm like, yeah, I know what he wants. He wants to offer me to deer hunt there so he can come hunt here in Illinois or even Kentucky. And so I'm like, well, tell me what you got over there. I said, what are you talking about? Do I got to pay you something or what? And he's like, no, he's like, free everything. He's like, you come hunt and you'll have the time of your life. I said, well, tell me what you got, And he's like, well, I got a huge farm. I got tons of acreage. We get big bucks every year. We got fishing on our pond. We could do four-wheeler riding. He's like, my property is so advanced for land management that it kind of blows yours away. And he's like, your mind will be blown from day one. And I'm like, what? Well, how much acreage you got? And he kind of pauses. Usually when he wants to whip out an answer, he replies right away. But then he pauses and he's like, I got about 40 acres. About 40, he says. And I'm like, All right, I'm like, well, send me some pictures of your bigger bucks. And again, he waited. I'm like, send me some pictures. Let's see what you got if you're better than mine. So he sent me a picture. He said, this was a mature one. He's like, it's not huge, but this was a mature one. I had to take him last year. He's like, but it's pretty dang big. And so he sends me a picture of this buck. And he's bragging. He sends me pictures of this sunflowers or something, whatever he plants, and he plants milo and sorghum and all these like off-page kind of food plotty stuff. And he sends me pictures of his dog swimming in a pool, locked up in a kennel. The food plotting pictures he sent, they're pretty good. And the tractor, and he's like, yeah, your Branson Megatron. He's like, it's okay. He's like, but I got a Kubota. And I'm like, yeah, so Megatron will probably eat that Kubota and spit it out. And he sent me a picture of his four-wheeler, and he's like, no, it's a little bit small, not like your big Polaris. He's like, but I could probably teach you some tricks on how to drive that thing. So he sends me a picture of his ATV. Yeah, fishing. So he's like, I can self-sustain. He's like, I could live off of the pond and the meat off of our 40 acres. I'm like, well, send me some pictures. What do you got? Send me some of your big fish and that. So he sends me a panfish with a can of beer next to it. I'm like, okay. I'm like, I could catch them all day long in my pond. And his food plot stuff, he'd send me these pictures of these strips that he mowed up, that he tilled up. And I'm like, well, that's pretty. I'm like, but what about the strips in between? You know, you're losing half of your acreage for your food plot. He's like, yeah, but it looks cool, man. And he's like, the deer travel in these skinny little strips. So it's like a checkerboard food plot, and the deer travel through these 6-foot wide strips. I'm like, dude, really? You cannot be serious. What else has he sent me? Yeah, and then he's like, talks about firewood cutting in the woods, and he'll say how he's like, man, Mike Morgan ain't got nothing on me, and he'll send me like a picture of him in the woods. It was snowing. Like, that's a big deal. He's sitting outside in the snow with a beer can, it looks like. I'm like, okay, what's the actual point? So anyways, I thought, you know what, I'm gonna mess with him. I called him on it, and I said, hey, come down and visit the Kapper farm. And after a few days, he's like, all right. He's like, I'll come down, and you know, I might bring my 4-wheeler, I'll bring maybe some guns, and we'll see who's better at this stuff. And the dude's like serious. He's like, yeah, he's not like all there. So I'm like, well, let's try it. We'll have some fun. So he's coming down this weekend, the July 4th weekend. I think we're gonna make him get a motel. But he sent me pictures of his pork that he like processes all himself, and he's got his own like meat shaver and meat grinder. Let's see what else so his tractor, I'm not positive if it's a Kubota. I think it is a Kubota. It's orange, and I'm pretty sure he said Kubota. Yeah, it's a Kubota. He's got this tiller, this faded old orange tiller. I'm like, okay, well, as long as it tills up the dirt, man, whatever. And he sends me these pictures of like him driving down the city street on his tractor. So he's driving down a county road on the Kubota. He's like, I'm living the dream, man. I'm like, well, I guess. Let me see what else stuff he sent me.
Leader of the free world.
Oh yeah, and he'll send me pictures, you know. He's like, while you're sitting in your hot tub, he's like, I'm eating cheddar venison burgers. And he send me pictures. I'm like, oh, all right, I'd honestly kind of rather have a nice red meat beef burger, but hey, whatever floats your boat, you know. And then he sends me a picture on his 4-wheeler, all proud, you know, like, this is Schick happens right here, man. He's like sitting up like this. Send me pictures of him swimming in his pool. Here's another shot of his Kubota with the back blade on it. I mean, it looks like probably a 50-ish horse. Open station. Oh yeah, he'll be like, yeah, you got your fancy cab tractor. He's like, but real men work in open stations. And all I could think of was Josh Beckett. Yeah, sorry, Josh. Let's see, what else does he send me? You know, his wife seems to like the outdoors, which that's cool. But I'm curious if like she's normal and he's just a little off center here. What else is this? Yeah, more pictures of his like food plots and strips. I'm like, well, that's really cool. And then there's grass in between it. You know, there's grass like this tall in the strips that the deer are supposed to walk through. I'm like, really, dude? Picture of his pond. Looks like he's got a pretty nice pond, you know. Oh, and he planted a pine grove, you know. So when he saw us planting the white pines, he's like, that's pretty cool, but look at my pine grove. So he's got this little pine grove. It looks like it's like, you know, 100 feet by 100 feet with Christmas trees in it. All right, so I mean, in a nutshell, we're gonna do something we never did. You know, we're gonna have a YouTube, I guess, kind of a fan, but a know-it-all. out to have some fun and see what this guy can really do. I mean, then he sent me another picture of the, like, he's like, now this is a big buck. And it's this scraggly little, well, let's look at it up here, you'll see it. That's a big, big buck. Yeah, anyways, we're gonna try something totally different this 4th of July weekend. So I got no idea what to expect. I figured, you know, life is short, let's try something. You know, I mean, he's supposed to come down with his wife this weekend, and I'm gonna put him to the task. I don't know if I'll let him drive Megatron or not. I mean, geez, he might bang it into a tree. It's sold right now. I got someone waiting to buy it because I just did a deal on a new one, which I got to tell you guys all about separately. So we'll see, we're gonna have some fun. So stay tuned through the weekend. I might pop a few vlogs out on Schick happens and how the weekend is going, but it should be fun, hopefully. Hopefully you don't try to like off me and bury me back in my land or something, but I'm pretty sure I'll be ready for that. So I'll catch you guys on the next go around, and stay tuned for Schick happens.